Dang. So I just finished Act 2 and man, Navia is such a likable character. Like, this Archon quest basically felt like a story quest for her, and I'm fine with it because I feel like the story was just well written. There are things that move the overall Fontaine plot forward, which is good. So yeah, let's talk about Fontaine's Archon quest Act 2 as light rain falls without reason. Neuvillette. I'll start with the more centric character of the quest, Navia. She treats us to food after our previous win in the trial earlier over Furina. We eventually part ways and learn that the voice in the fountain calling for Vashur comes from an Oceanid, where it seems that people who have dissolved have their souls gathered up to form an Oceanid. We wake up to the cutscene from the trailer where Hoyoverse once again bamboozles us because the trailer suggested that Clorinde would be our enemy alongside the Gardamex, but really Clorinde is on our side. The tension between Clorinde and Navia was due to the passing of Navia's father, Callus, who died fighting Clorinde in a trial by combat, but made Clorinde promise to ensure Navia's safety. Navia reveals to us why her worldviews are the way they are. Her father dying was essentially falsely accused and seen as unfaithful, dying because of it. This explains why Navia feels that court matters should be taken much more seriously compared to the entertainment it gets in Fontaine, because people's lives are literally at stake and there shouldn't really be entertainment in that. Since the Serial Disappearances is connected with Callus's death, Navia wants to clear her father's name and get to the bottom of the case, for closure for herself and the people that were impacted, which she does. I think what makes Navia really likable to me is how mature she goes about her problems and doesn't really throw any sissy fits or anything. She'll take new information and reason about them before making any moves. She's not rash about things. But at the same time, there are lots of emotions she has inside and is unsure what to do with them, which I think to be very human. I just found myself rooting for her a lot to solve the case and clear her father's name, as well as trying to make an impact on some of Fontaine's dumb laws. Which is good because it shows that while she wants closure for herself, she's also trying to make Fontaine overall a better place. And I think she did do that by solving the case. Eventually, we gather evidence to deduce that the traitor is Marcel, the leader of the Confrérie of Cabriel, essentially the sister organization of Navia's Spina di Rosula. I don't have too much to comment on the history and the details of the case, since the game made it pretty clear. I was able to follow along how things were deduced and thought that the overall gameplay was smoother compared to the previous Archon's deduction gameplay mechanics. I figured the main antagonist would be another NPC in Marcel, but at least his motivations were reasonable, and his crimes opened up a bunch of lore for us, so that was fine. The writers must have hated him because while we were being set up for him to get closure with Vignier, he just got killed by the consciousness of his victims. So that's justice. I find it super funny how Childe was being accused because it made a lot of sense for his character. Of course, it's good for him to be accused because he'll just always request a trial by combat to get out of it, and that'll satisfy his fighting needs. He was looking to fight Clorinde during all of this, so this trial was basically a free ticket for him to do so, if it weren't for Navia saving the day with the actual facts. I will excuse Navia for this because I like Navia. It's pretty awesome seeing Childe's overall confidence though, because he even challenges Furina to a fight. And Furina was so confident to fight the Traveler, yet she's super hesitant and even flabbergasted to fight Childe, which makes it funny to infer some strength rankings here. And towards the end, it was great seeing Childe getting to fight anyways, even if it was against Gardamex and not Clorinde herself. I think it's noteworthy that right as Childe was transforming to Foul Legacy, Furina seemed a little shocked. Even though Neuvillette steps in and basically one-shots Childe does manage to get a scratch on him, so he was able to at least react to Neuvillette. We still don't know exactly why Childe is in Fontaine, but it's heavily implied that he was investigating the Oratrice's core, and is the person who saw Linny in the core's room. Makes sense that Childe would recognize Linny since they're both Fatui. It's likely why the Oratrice is condemning Childe as guilty, because while he's innocent in the Serial Disappearance case, there are other things that he's guilty of. But yeah, I think that weaving Childe into the story like this was a good choice. It didn't feel out of place. Some lingering questions though are, who even accused Childe? The prosecutor's seat was empty, which is strange because if a trial is being held, then the prosecutor should be present. What happened to Childe's vision? We still have it, but we still need to understand why it stopped working. It could be Fontaine related, but it could also just be personally related to how Childe has been feeling recently. So we'll need some more elaboration there. A part of me feels that it's more related to Childe and not to the overall Fontaine story because there haven't been any other reports in Fontaine about visions losing power. The next character I want to give thoughts on is Neuvillette, and I like where they're going with this character. At this point, the story is just confirming to us that he's the Hydro Dragon at this point. There's no question about it. The rare times that it rains in Fontaine is correlated to his days of sadness and contemplation. He also finds it interesting that humans won't always prioritize their own survival, which likely contrasts to his own race of dragons because dragons likely had to solely focus on survival after the primordial one. So it's clear that he's a dragon trying to assimilate into human society and to find his own place in it. Kinda similar to Ganyu in a way. We see his character conflicts via his interaction with Navia and the trials, where his ideal of justice is questioned. Navia questions the strictness of following the law, especially when Neuvillette knew that Callus was likely not guilty, so why does he choose to prioritize the law over his own feelings? What exactly is his ideal of justice? He has to question it because clearly things are not working all the time. You have false charges being made, and both the oratrice and the people are not always fond of the law. He already starts to show changes in his thinking by visiting Callus's grave and apologizing to Callus. I think these are all themes that can be easily explored with Neuvillette's character and backstory in the next update, where I assume he'll get his story quest. So yeah, that's another video for me to make in the future. Also, I thought it was hilarious when we asked him questions at the end, and he just not have anything to say at all. We asked him about our sibling, and he's just like, nope, haven't seen him. Next. So I'm like, okay. Well, at least thank you for the other lore drops. Those were cool. And finally, I wanted to quickly chat about Furina because I'm happy that, as I predicted in the previous video, Furina is already getting character development. During Marcel's trial, Furina has already become more careful with her words and actions, which is a direct consequence of her previously falsely accusing Linny. This is good growth. Looking forward to more. But the main thing that I noted was at the end when we asked Neuvillette about the prophecy, where he told us that Furina is 100% aware of this prophecy and has taken it very seriously in order to combat it, which I think to be a great narrative technique for us to empathize with and sympathize with Furina more, because we're learning this about her from someone else. It seems that Furina intentionally shows only the snarky and bratty sides of her, and chooses to keep the more serious and challenging problems just to herself. She internalizes them and wants to protect her people, which I think adds a great layer to her character. This theme of keeping problems to oneself in order to protect others is a common trait that's shared between Linny and Furina, and perhaps Neuvillette. But yeah, I think I'm glad that Neuvillette told us this. He's aware of the Hydro Archon struggles, and I want to see where Furina goes from here. So yeah, those were some of my initial thoughts. The second act was a bit more character-centric than plot-focused, but it was really enjoyable, and there are still good setups that it made. I pretty much liked how every character was portrayed. I think my next video is going to be about Linny, Lynette, and Fremne, so stay tuned for that. Fontaine's story has been pretty fun so far. So yeah, thank you for watching this video, and till next time, take care.